So, my name is Reverend Carolyn McKeown-Fish, and I'm a retired pastor of the former Chico Church of Religious Science, now this Center for Spiritual Living, either New Thought Center or Greater Chico, but I am a member here. So it's a pleasure to be able to be here today and to welcome all of you and to know that I can be a catalyst for Reverend Michael to have some rest and recuperation from time to time. And this will be, however, the last time I'm speaking until I think it's September. And so thank you, Michael, for letting me do this. It's just, it keeps me fresh and thinking, keeps my mind alert most of the time. Well, I'm not going to say that. I have a big birthday coming up this year, so we'll talk about that in December. As I said, my lesson for this morning is the question is from, fear of faith. And it seems like we've done this a lot this year about trust, faith, and then I think I spoke at New Thought earlier this year about faith. And so it seems like this is my thing to learn, really learn. And so I'm going to start with the idea that Henry David Thoreau, the great naturalist and author, was a powerful metaphysician. He was born in 1817 and he only lived to be 45. But in that time, he grasped the principles for effective living and doing what works. If you've ever read any of his things, you glean that. One of the principles that he effected was about the faculty of imagination. And this is what he wrote. He said, if you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. And castles, of course, meaning the fantasies that we have in our imagination. Your work need not be lost. That is where they should be, in the imagination. Now, put the foundations under them. So I had to think about that. And what I discovered in my own mind is that he was telling us that everything does begin in the imagination. I mean, it can't be anywhere else. That's the divine ideal is what happens. And those images will not be lost if we trust in the principle, it is done unto you as you believe. You see, your ideas that you've created in your imagination will simply stay in the imagination and become daydreams if you aren't willing to do the work that's necessary to give them life. So, what is that work? It's the work that is required to move or transmute fear into faith. How many of you have had a great idea, something in your imagination, and you built on that idea, it became bigger and bigger? Whether it be something as simple as buying a home, and you had this idea, and you'd add a room or two, and then you'd find some decor, or you'd paint it this way, or you'd have this or that. And you would build this image in your mind, and then all of a sudden, you hear this little voice that says, who do you think you are? You know that's way too much for you. You'll never be able to afford that. You'll never blah, blah, blah. You'll never, whatever it is, but it's the fear that comes up that stops the imagination from becoming a reality because we haven't given it life. We haven't given it the energy. We have given it energy. Because you see, fear and faith are really the same energy. It's just flipped inside out. There's only one energy, it's God, it's God's energy, but it's the way that we use it. That's the problem. So I'm going to tell a few stories. Years ago, a well-known television circus show developed a Bengal tiger act. And like the rest of the show, it was done live before a very large audience. So one evening, the tiger trainer went into the cage with several tigers to do his routine performance. And the door was locked behind him, the spotlights highlighted the cage. The audience watched in suspense as the trainer put the tigers through their paces. And right in the middle of the performance, the lights went out. Scary. For 30 long seconds, the trainer was locked in the cage with the tigers. In the darkness, they could see him, but he couldn't see them. Now that's scary. He had a whip and a small chair, which seemed a meager protection under the circumstances, but he survived. And when the lights came on, he calmly finished his performance. And in an interview afterward, he was asked how he felt knowing the tigers could see him, but he couldn't see them. And he said, and this is the key, I just kept cracking my whip and waving the chair and talking to them until the lights came on. They never knew he couldn't see them as well as they could see him. At some point in our lives, all of us have to face the terrifying task of fighting tigers in the dark. Anybody ever do it? And the secret to surviving is holding onto the whip and the chair until our support system and the light comes on. And of course, in this case, we're not tiger trainers. We really don't have a chair and a whip, except that we have faith and trust if we use it in a power that is greater than we are. But you see, we have to use it like he used the whip and the chair to continue making the tigers think that he knew where they were. And so they obeyed him. We really don't have to trick the spirit that we are. The spirit knows everything. So if we're going to use this whip and the chair that we have of our faith and trust, then what we have to do is ask ourselves if we're using it correctly. Are we using the power that we have before us to hold the tripod of our belief in the imagination or the idea that we've held in mind? We have to hold it with the tripod of our belief that it is already complete. It is done unto us as we believe. If we don't believe it's possible, it'll stay a daydream. Whatever it is that we're desiring, we can have it. I think I've told the story before about Whistler. When he was first married, he was so poor. He and his bride, all they could afford was the bed. But in their little home, in each room, they drew on the floor with chalk pictures of the furniture that they wanted. That they were holding, that was their tripod. They had so much faith, and of course they filled their little home. Just like we all do occasionally. Maybe not with what we want, because we didn't believe we could have it. I don't know if I've told you this story. There's been too many years and too many stories in too many places. But if you've heard it before, just take it in a new way. And it's the story about the man from Redondo Beach. This is a true story. And Frank Richelieu and Anita, who were the pastors there at that church told this story to Sillamar one year. And they had the fortune to have somebody give them a brand new car to raffle. And so they were selling tickets and they were making money hand over fist. And the time came for the drawing, and the man who won got up from his seat in the sanctuary, and what did he have in his hand? The license plate for the new car.
Wow.
Yeah, look at the hair stand up on my arm. I mean, that's putting the foundation under your imagination. He went down to the DMV and said, I'm winning that car and I want the license plate for it. Now that is your belief acted out, followed through. You know, how many of us would be able to do that? The truth is, we all could, if we but believe. Now, both of these stories show faith as a verb. And Ernest Holmes defines faith as a mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. That man did not deny his idea. And if we want to demonstrate in our life through our faith and not fear, then we need to inwardly embody the idea so much that we can't deny it as well. And it seems so simple, doesn't it? But what was it that David Thoreau said? Your work need not be lost, but it means that we have to work. Too many people come into this science and think, well, all I have to do is think positive. Well, how many of us know that's really not the principle? Sam does. Right. We have to work, don't we? We work through our spiritual practices. We work through our affirmative prayer. We work through the way we are being in the world. How are we serving? What are we receiving? What are we giving out? That's the work that we're here to do, to be so consciously conscious of the essence of our spirit that the authentic, if we ever ask for authenticity, that's our authentic being, is when we're acting from the idea that God is what we are. God in all of its fullness is the motivating force that pushes us to do anything that we are doing. And if we're not doing that, then check what it is that's motivating you. Is it for other people's approval? Is it because you're afraid not to do something, or you're afraid to do something and then you're doing it out of resistance, or however we do that? Whatever it is that we're doing, we need to be doing it filled with the faith in the goodness of God. Absolute goodness of God. Well, how difficult is that when what we're facing in this day and age, this last week? Where's the goodness of God in what we've experienced this last week? Well, it's in the invisible. We may not be able to see it through our judgment, but what we have to know is that somehow, some way, all of the things that are happening are an evolution of the spirit of humankind, and it's bringing us to something better. If we're not believing that, then we're in fear, and fear is generating more of the same. We must turn away entirely from the condition, is what's written in capital letters in the textbook. And if we're not able to do that, if we get into, and I know I do it from time to time until I catch myself, woe is me. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. Has anybody ever said that this week? And you see, as metaphysicians, we must stop ourselves. We need to more and more claim, exclaim, God is all there is. God is at the center of every activity, whether I can see it or not. God is at the center of every activity. The tiger trainer couldn't see to keep the tigers in tow, but he had the faith and the ability to outsmart the cats by continuing the action that they were accustomed to. So the Whistler and his bride had that same faith, and it's the definition of Paul's faith. Listen to this from Scripture. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, as it was the substance of things which have come to pass, and it is the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the substance of what we hold in the imagination. It's that universal energy that is unformed as an idea. It is the evidence of things not yet seen. But if we can use our faith, what happens, the faith becomes the energy by which the substance then moves out into form when there's enough of the belief behind that substance to push it out into form. Someone has said, only he who can see the invisible can do the impossible. Can we see the invisible? Can we let these ideas, these lofty ideas, not, and I said fantasy earlier, but I don't mean fantasy. I mean an idea, a lofty idea of higher good. Higher good. Can we let the invisible essence of that, garnered and worked by our faith, to let it come out into form? Now, we don't have to do the work to bring it into form. The law of mind does that. Love points the way, higher good. Law brings it about. This universal law that is a universal subjectivity that knows everything, everyone, knows how to coordinate everything that can possibly be to bring into form the desire of the heart. But we have to be able to see beyond the impossibility that fear brings up in us. We need to learn to say no. You are not going to live in my mind. No. You are not going to take away this divine idea from me. No. And so you're talking to yourself about that. The dictionary defines faith as unquestioning belief in God and anything believed. Anything believed. Did you get that? And that's the one that gets us into trouble, doesn't it? There's the story of a man traveling through the Midwest who found a farmer lounging on his porch surrounded by weed-strewn, cropless fields, and he asked, "How's your corn?" "Didn't plant any this year," replied the farmer. Afraid it might rain, or afraid it might not rain. He must live in California. "Well, how's your cotton?" asked the traveler. "Didn't plant any." "Afraid of boll weevils," said the farmer. "Didn't you at least plant a vegetable garden?" asked the traveler. "Nope," replied the farmer. "I'm playing it safe." Well, farmer's attitude is like the attitude of far too many people. His beliefs in negative comes cause stagnation. And how can a farm succeed when fear is running the place? It can't. Fear is a killer of the spirit of anything. Now, there's fear and then there's fear. You know, if we'll jump out of the way of a car, you know, if we started to cross and we didn't look and we moved back, that's fear. But that's a motivation. That's an adrenaline rush, if you will. And then there's the fear of not being able to see possibility and talking ourselves out of what it is that we're worth, because we don't know we're expressions of God. We don't understand fully our spirit. We don't know that we deserve the kingdom of heaven. Jesus told us we could have the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. And I looked up the word kingdom, and it's because it's Father's good pleasure to give us a kingdom. This is a definition from the dictionary. Listen to this. Kingdom is the realm in which God's will is fulfilled. That's the kingdom. That's where God's will is fulfilled for us, and we were told we could have it. We can have God's will for us. Everybody just take a deep breath. Isn't that just the most wonderful idea you've ever heard? It's just like, yes, God's kingdom. That means everything. No matter what our heart could desire that is of good, why can't we have it? Why can't we be it? Why can't the world be this way? It's because we don't all know that. We don't practice it. We don't move it out into action because we believe in impossibility. I know there are times when the boll weevils come and it doesn't rain, but we need to be confident even in the face of ruin. I always remember the story of Thomas Edison, who found his home on fire, and he was so excited about it. He called his son and he said, "Son, you've got to come down and watch this. This is the most spectacular thing you will ever see in your life."
Wow.
It's like he's watching his home burn down. But he knew possibility. He knew renewal. He knew he could rebuild. He did not cave in the face of ruin. And we know that from all of his inventions anyway. But he was just that kind of a man. And if he can do it, I mean, was he a special one of God? Well, we're all special ones of God. Whatever he did, we can do also. And even greater, Jesus told us. So, the old saying that things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out is what Thomas Edison did. All right. I'm going to close with this idea. A traveler crossed a frozen stream in trembling fear one day. Later, a teamster drove across and whistled all the way. Great faith and little faith alike were granted safe convoy. One had pangs of needless fear, the other all the joy. Are you going to have the pangs of fear, or do you want all the joy? It's up to us. God bless you.